Muted.
Two of this session. So let's go ahead and get started. Ashley?
Thanks so much, Brian. So good morning, everyone, again. For today's call, we're super excited to continue with part two of this month's Manager's Training for Performance Management. As a recap of our previous presentation for part one, we discussed Westcor's philosophy and our company competencies for performance management, some goal setting, and multiple coaching and feedback techniques. For today, for part two's presentation, our objectives will include discussing and navigating through the performance management tool in UltiPro. Now, this will consist of goal setting, creation of action plans, providing feedback and annual reviews. And we'll also be providing you with some quick tips, tools, and resources that are available to you in UltiPro and within Human Resources. So we hope by the end of this call, you'll be able to navigate and complete your employee reviews in UltiPro. We really do believe that the performance management tool in UltiPro is going to be a great asset to our company, and hope you will feel the same too. Today, again, as Brian indicated, you'll have both myself, Ashley, and Brian presenting this presentation to you. Of course, as a reminder, we'll be recording this session and posting on Westcorn University and UltiPro and sending it via email if you need to go ahead and reference that for the future. If you have any questions or concerns during the presentation, please make sure you're posting them in our chat. If we're able to respond immediately, we most definitely will. However, if we aren't, we'll definitely assist that at the end of the call. We will go ahead and mute all phone lines for the duration of today's call, and we'll open them at the end for your feedback and questions. Again, so much thank you for joining us today on our call, and let's go ahead and get started. Brian, take it away.
All right, wonderful. And this is our first delivery of part two, so please a little grace and forgiveness if we mess up along the way, but we're here to help orient you to this material. So a little bit of a review of the performance management lifecycle, right? So what we had just talked about in the previous session in the part one is that there's a bit of a cadence and a life cycle to performance management. And so what we're going to do today is to fit all of what we talked about, some of the theory and the skills and the tools and our philosophy, we're going to kind of fit that into, for you as a manager, what do you do, right? What's your job here? How do you interact with the system? What's it going to look like? And what are the expectations of you? So remember that the way that this flows is that you as the manager, and we're going to talk through this today, are going to work with your employee to set some goals. If you've already got some great goals, we're going to teach you how your employee or yourself can get those into the system. If you haven't yet worked with your employee on goals, we're going to give you some options and some ways that you can still do performance management while you're kind of integrating into this new way that we're going to do things. You know, part of the goal setting and helping employees achieve a goal might be working with them on creating a development plan. What is a development plan? Well, it can look and feel different, but essentially it's taking the goals that your employee wants to achieve and putting some timelines around them, putting some action steps, right? Think of it like a project plan of, okay, I want to increase sales 10% in my region by the end of the year. All right, well, there's a whole heck of a lot of steps that you can take each day, week, and month to build up to hopefully achieving that goal at the end of the year. So the development plan are, you know, the steps, the training, the actions that the employee is going to take, hopefully to lead all the way from A to Z. Then, as we've talked about, you're going to continue to provide coaching. So, you know, you're going to use all the same skills, all the same meetings, all the same tools that hopefully you have been using as a successful manager here at Westcor, and building on those. Maybe you learned a skill or two or a technique or two that, or were reminded of one that you should be doing more of in part one. And so you're going to be using those to coach and meet with your employees, adjusting their plan, providing corrective action along the way throughout the year. And then as we get to an employee's anniversary date, you're going to perform a review in UltiPro in the system. Now, of course, given the way that works, there's a linear timeline that goes along with this life cycle, right? And that is, let's say you manage 10 different employees. Not many of our managers manage that many employees, but you may have 10 different months of the year that those employees have anniversary dates, right? So you may be in a different cadence of this cycle with each of your employees relative to their anniversary dates throughout the year. So just think about that a little bit. At some organizations that I've consulted for or been a part of in the past, some organizations say every October we review every employee. Some organizations say, every March we review this division, and every November we review this division, right? At Westcor, what we're going to do is we're going to tie our annual performance review dates to an employee's annual hire date. So that's going to look and feel a little different depending on your experiences in the past. So just think about that as we're talking through the life cycle and the actions that we're going to talk through today.
So for today, we're going to discuss, of course, our performance management tool that is available in UltiPro. So to kind of go over exactly what is available in there and how we're going to really house a lot of information for your employees to assist them for their development, but also for you in terms of reviews, let's go through a couple of talking points. So the first thing that an employee can do is they can actually add some information on their employee talent card. So the type of information they can add would be previous jobs, their skills, experiences. So what do we need to do to get that information in there? So what we need to do in HR is actually collaborate with you, our managers, to add various types of licenses, skills, awards that are based upon your department and your employees' roles at Westcor into UltiPro. So what happened is, if an employee, for example, like myself, I got my master's, I can add my new education on my file, and what happened is there will be an alert that's triggered and sent to my manager to go ahead and approve that to be listed onto my talent card. So what does it really do? This helps you to aid you in the development of your employees. It helps you understand exactly, their experience, where they lie, their skills, and possibly how you can develop them in the future for another role at Westcor, and to move forward in their career options. So,
and again, part of this,
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ashley. I was just going to add in, remember, I wanted to tie this back to our engagement survey and the feedback we get from employees. So remember, part of what we hear loud and clear from employees is they want better connections and tie-in to you as a manager and to us as a company and to our leaders at the company of how they can learn and grow in their career and in their job. And so part of this is a visual step for employees where HR will announce this out to employees where they have the ability to go out and put that sort of LinkedIn resume type information out in UltiPro. And that's an active step they can take, and they're seeing some of the positive forward movement that we're using. Then on the backside, what we also have to do to keep our commitment is, we need to use that in conversations with employees. We need to mine that data when all of a sudden we're starting up something new and we need, someone who's got experience in X. We could look and see, hey, look, these 10 people have escrow experience. We can tap into that. And sometimes it's in unusual places, right? Sometimes it's not just on TJ's escrow team. Sometimes it's folks at other parts of the organization. Or in the past, I've used this where, we had a quick need where we had a situation come up with, we needed to know which of our employees had a unique language skill because we needed to translate something. This is at another organization, of course, but we needed to translate something, and we had a talent scorecard like this. We could look it up and say, hey, look, we've got 5 people who have a working knowledge of Mandarin. Let's reach out to them internally and see, can they help us with this, or not. So there are lots of uses that we can use cases for this type of information, but that's one piece for the talent card that we can use. So I apologize for interrupting, Ashley, but I just wanted to point that out.
No, I appreciate that. Some really good commentary on how we can really utilize the talent card and thoroughly develop our employees here. So next, you also want to know that in our performance management tool, both employees and yourself as the manager can set goals. So what's really important about this is that you want to make sure you're remembering to set specific goals that will provide measurable results for a determined time frame. So what I did there is actually I went ahead and incorporate the really great tool of SMART goals. So you want to make sure that the goals that you're setting, whether they are short-term or long-term, are achievable and attainable to your employees. And some of the types of goals an employee can maybe put on there would be maybe obtaining a new accreditation for their career option or their long-term goal they may have. For yourself as a manager, you can set a goal that's more in terms of their position and their role and where you can really see their role can grow into. For a third bullet note here, employee and managers can make notes throughout the year on goal progress, performance conversations, and achievements. So with this, you want to make sure, again, that you're being concise, that you're being detailed in your notes, that you're being transparent in your notes, so that the employees will have the ability to take a look at this going forward, going backwards in the future, just to make sure that they are attaining and growing in their goal progress for the goals that you both have set for them. And finally, employee and managers can look back at previous reviews. So when we're saying previous reviews, we're actually mentioning more so about annual reviews. So both the employees and yourself can look back at previous reviews, and it's going to help you exactly to project exactly how you can progress their career here at Westcor, what standards that they have met at that point, looking back, and what maybe even how far they have gone at this point. So it's really important that when you're making these notes onto their file, so to speak, that you're being detailed and very concise as well.
And I don't know if you've ever worked in a system or at an organization where you had the ability to utilize that that fourth bullet. So, where you can add in kind of incremental notes throughout the year. So what do a lot of us do, right? Maybe there's an email today that you have in your email box, and you think to yourself, in 11 months, when I do my employee review, I definitely want to remember to mention this, right? It gets buried in your email, or maybe you print it out and you put it in a paper file in your desk drawer. If you're kind of old school and you keep paper files on your employees, because some of us might have grown up in that kind of performance management way. But when I worked for an organization that deployed a system where you can actually go in throughout the year, and the employee can go in throughout the year, and you can make notes in the system, and then at the end of the year when that review comes up, you can even designate that a note be pulled into the review at the end. It's pretty powerful. It's pretty cool, because as you know and have experienced, what's called recency error sometimes happens, especially if you're looking at an annual review. The top of mind stuff in your head is, what has that employee done well and not so well in the past month or two, right? What have they done recently? And so to be able to think all the way back to 9, 10, 11, 12 months away sometimes is difficult. So it can be a powerful tool, but it's garbage in, garbage out. So it's all in how much you use it and if you use it to really bring value. So let's talk about some of those goals just for a moment. Whoops, I'm sorry. I flipped too far ahead. So, yeah, okay. So make sure that your screen says goals in UltiPro that you're seeing, because I rapid fire moved a few slides. So, okay, so how do goals work? So remember that sometimes when you create a process or a system, sometimes there's a little collateral damage. So here's the way that it works. In UltiPro, when we approach an employee's anniversary date, the system looks to see if there's at least one goal out there for the employee. If there's no goal at all, it's not going to kind of create the review document for them. It's not going to kick off the stuff that needs to happen, okay? We don't want that to happen. So what we have done to kind of fool the system is we've put a goal out there for all employees that I'll talk about in just a moment, but we've kind of primed the pump to make sure that that's not going to occur. But basically what's going to happen is you're going to work with your employee to set up one or more goals that are out there. So the goal has to be out there before a review is generated. Now, the only time that this really is kind of awkward is in this first year as we're transitioning to this model, right? We've got to work out the bumps and the kinks in kind of moving to this. After that, though, it's going to be built into our cadence of how you interact with employees, and every year then the problem will solve itself and we'll move ahead. So you as a manager can choose to enter goals yourself, or you can choose to meet with your employees, talk with them, and ask them to enter goals. Okay, so employees have the ability to enter a goal. However, it's not finalized or approved until you review it and kind of sign off on it, if you will, right? So an employee can't just say, hey, my goal is I want to be CEO next year, and without any approval or foresight by you, right? So you have the ability to say, hey, Ashley, I would like you to go in, here's some of the goals, think about it, enter some goals, let's talk about it, and then you have the ability to review them. So if they're all spot on, you can click, approve, 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 and you're good to go. If they're not spot on and you need to have a conversation to say, I don't really think this is achievable or attainable, or I don't think you're stretching yourself enough on this, can you amp it up a little bit? You're the manager, you can have that insight. This is exactly within the purview of your role to kind of have that conversation and help craft it. Now, you also have the ability to enter goals yourself. So, depending on how many people you manage, how different all their skills and job sets are, you may want to put, just populate an individual goal or 2 or 5 out there for your employee or for multiple employees. So one way the system will allow you to do this is, me for Ashley, I can go out and put 1 or more goals for her. Or if I have 5 people doing the same job and I want them all to have an identical goal, the system will actually allow you to kind of, push that goal out to multiple people. So we just want you to know, I don't want you to be overwhelmed by these options. I just want you to know there's essentially 3 different ways you can do it, right? You can broadcast it to more than 1 employee, you can assign it to a specific employee, or you can have the employee enter it themselves, and then you can review it as a manager. Okay. Also, like I said, we've pre-populated the first goal, and we're going to talk about some ideas for goals. However, this is super personal, right? This is on a broad training like this across all of our employees. I can't tell you specifically what the goal should be, right? That wouldn't be effective, because we want smart, specific goals that are for each job and each person's capability. So let's just talk just for a moment about some of this, because I know that, again, we all come from different places. Many of you might be super comfortable, and at this point in the presentation, you might say, gosh, well, I already know 5 goals for Ashley. We've already talked about them. She's not going to be surprised. We just got to go enter them. And some of others of you might be thinking, well, I've never even, conceptually done this in my entire career. I don't know what goals there are to put out there, or I don't even know what types of things to think about. So here's some ideas for you. That first goal on the screen here that's in green, this is the one that we pre-populated. So the pre-populated goal out there for every employee is, we're gonna meet you where you're at. We're gonna start with this. Everybody has job responsibilities. Hopefully they're written and in a job description, but look, I'm not fooling anybody here. We certainly probably have some jobs where you don't know where the job description is as a manager. Maybe you can ask HR, because we've got a library of a ton of our job descriptions that we've used. We might be able to send it to you, or maybe not. Maybe you've kind of created a role. We don't know what the person does, whatever. So the first one is, take a look at your job responsibilities, right? Review a job description if one exists. That's a perfect time for you and your employee to get on board and make sure, is this even the job that you're performing, right? Are there things on here that we can cross off because I don't even expect that you do them, or you're not doing them and I don't need you to? Or are there things in there that you can modify and change to be more accurate for what the job is? So a secondary result of this whole process is, wow, we're going to have everyone's going to have a great job title and job description by the time we're done with this after a year, because it's kind of going to get cleaned up in the process. Okay, but those things change, right? So even after the first year, those may change going forward. So anyway, we're going to create this first goal out there. That's going to allow us to get kicked off in the system. What are some other goals that you could do? Well, like we alluded to in part 1 of this training, a lot of our jobs have some specific metrics, right? Maybe it's sales numbers, maybe it's customer service, maybe it's a quality metric, maybe it's number of errors, like in a production volume or production rates. So A lot of our goals have more than just one metric, right? Some of our roles and jobs at the company have many, many metrics. So you may have one or more goals that are metrically driven, so attain, no more than a 5% error rate on this product, achieve X% of sales numbers, those types of things, right? So you're going to want to think about, work with your manager and talk to your employees about these types of goals. And again, some of you already have, and some of you are already there. Some of these, like Ashley alluded to, could be about growth. It could be growth in the role, right? It could be maybe they're a brand new hire, maybe they're new to the industry, maybe they're new to the role. And so it's about how that person's going to grow in the role and some measures that you can put in a goal format around their growth. Now, we know that a lot of our roles really are kind of broad roles. And so maybe it's about cross-training to kind of other parts of that role. We certainly have that in HR, right? We've got payroll and benefits and employee relations and policy and different things. So maybe it's about kind of growing breadth, right? We have that in a lot of our other job functions here too. Ashley alluded to things, sometimes with some of our roles, certain things are required or are helpful to growth in the role. So things like additional certifications or a license in a new state or, a new type of license or other types of education, staying apprised of the latest law in a certain state on a certain topic, right? So these types of things could also be written into goal types of ideas that are out there, depending on the job. Maybe it's serving as a subject matter expert, or we have seminars, right? Maybe it's about presenting at certain seminars your expertise. Maybe it's about participation in a state or national ALTA committee or work group. Being an expert outside of the organization on something. Those also are awesome goal ideas that you can track and work towards with employees on. But look, even if you're kind of stumped on all this and you don't know what to do, this is the first year, again, going through this. There's a little bit of uncomfortableness and growing pains, so you can go back to basics. Some of the best kind of employee review questions for an employee to reflect on and for you to comment on are simple. Like, here are the key strengths, that I feel like you have in this job. Here are some of the key areas where I think you need improvement in, right? So even some of these goals can look a little more like responsibilities or strengths or areas of improvement. And then lastly, we used a couple of these examples in part one, but think too on maybe an initiative or project basis, right? So we're rolling out Salesforce to the organization. So someone is in charge of kind of that rollout and some associated training and deadlines and things. So a project or an initiative like that can also be a goal or a series of goals for a review like this. So these are just some ideas. These are just things that Ashley and I kind of brainstormed using our experience in the industry. Certainly this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just to help you think through how to create great goals for employees. Okay, so let's say we've created goals, okay? And we're gonna fast forward in time now, right? Because we know that after you create the goals, you've been coaching your employee, you've been going through that next phase, you've been coaching and providing feedback and having one-on-ones and all that great stuff that you do every day as managers. And now we're approaching one of your employees' anniversary dates, okay? So that anniversary date's coming up. Here's what's gonna happen. UltiPro is going to email the employee and ping them and say, hey, Brian, it's time for you to do a self-review. Your anniversary date's coming up. It's time for your annual review. The first step of that process is this. You're going to do a self-review. So the employee is going to look at the 5 competencies we talked about. They're going to look at the goals that are out there, and they're going to think about it and write a little bit in UltiPro about each of those things. Okay. Step 2 is, so then it's going to come to you. UltiPro is going to tell you, hey, manager, Mary, Brian has just completed his self-review. So the 2 things that you'll do at that point is, number 1, you have the opportunity, you can look at their self-review. And you can see what are Brian's thoughts on these goals. You know, where does he feel like he achieved? Where does he feel like he exceeded? Where does he feel like maybe he didn't meet the mark, or what else does he need? You can see Brian's commentary on those 5 West Core competencies, or, you know, what other support from Mary do I feel like I need to do my, you know, for the financial awareness category, for example, or, you know, what are some examples that I really want Mary to know about where I feel like I've illustrated teamwork as a core value and helped others learn about you know, our teamwork as an organization, right? So I have the ability to do that. This gives you a lot of great intelligence about where your employee's head is at. Again, vast range of experience. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to ever ask an employee to do a self-review and then review that, but it's an amazing way to start, because before you then have a chance to kind of write your review of the employee, and before you sit down and meet with your employee and talk to them, you can see where the gaps are, right? So in my experience, some employees have been extremely hard on themselves to where I think they're doing a great job in a certain area, but they think they're miserably failing. And so that gives you an amazing talking point to be able to reassure them of how great you think they're doing, and try to solve some of the issues of why there's a gap there. Why do they feel like they're failing in an area where you feel like they're exceeding? And vice versa, right? We all know, we have those stories. Some of you are probably chuckling on mute, right? We have those folks who think that they are simply amazing, and perhaps maybe our enthusiasm for how they perform a function of their job is not matching that. So that's also great intelligence for you to know walking into that conversation and preparing how you want to document their performance, because obviously that's also a gap that you need to address to help to successfully performance manage. So those are the 2 steps there in number 2 on this slide. You'll review their self-review, and then you're going to complete their assessment, okay, in the tool. So what do you do next? Well, unfortunately, in my long career in HR, I've had some managers that the next step they would take is they would email a copy of their review to the employee and just say, here's your review. Okay, let's not do that, please. Let's not handle it that. That again is eroding the relationship of you and the manager, and that's certainly not connecting them well to West Core's value of being a family and being humanistic and supporting our people, right? So really you need to have a conversation. So again, eye to eye if you can, over the phone if you can't, but it's going to be a conversation where you talk about those gaps. You observe their review of themselves, and you can emphasize the things that they are doing really well, and you can reiterate some of the things that you would like to see them improve on in the next year, or take on, or do differently, or achieve, going forward. After that, then you have the ability to acknowledge the review in UltiPro, or I'm sorry, the employee acknowledges it formally in UltiPro after your conversation. Basically, it's kind of like signing a review. If it were a paper document in front of you, right? It's kind of the electronic equivalent of signing it. They acknowledge it, and then you do a final acknowledgement, and then now it's like an official review in their record, so to speak. So at that point, then it can't be changed or modified, after that point. If the reason that you kind of keep it open through that conversation is maybe you have a great dialogue and generate a few more things like, oh yeah, I forgot that you worked on that project. We really should make that a part. I should add that in as a part of the review. So I'm going to go add that back in. Thanks for mentioning that to me. And then you can do that because you're aware of it through the conversation before you officially close out on that review. So kind of what does it look like? Let's show you some screenshots here. If you're familiar with UltiPro, you know there's that menu bar at the top with lots of stuff. So this view right here, what are you looking at here? This is the employee's view. So this is your view as an employee, or your employee's view, okay? So this shows you that you are now in myself, in the jobs category, and you are in the reviews tab. So this shows that right now you have an in-progress review for yourself. It was effective, 11/2/16. And over on the right-hand side of that row, you see it says employee assessment. So the current status right now is you as an employee need to be completing your own self-assessment. Okay, and again, you'll get an email ping as an employee that's telling you this is coming up, and then it'll direct you here to navigate to actually complete that self-assessment on yourself. So then once that's complete, then what does it look like for you as a manager? So take your employee hat off, put your manager hat on. You are now looking at a manager view of UltiPro, okay? In this manager view, you are in My Team, Talent Management, okay? That's kind of the section you're in, right? And this talent dashboard is now showing you there's one outstanding review. There are no goals that are pending approval. There's one outstanding review, and that is for Camille Truman, and it's right there. So if you click on this down here, then it's going to take you to the review itself. So you could perform your part of the review. Okay, and the different icons will let you, look at various attributes of the goals that are set up there and the review itself and such. Okay, so imagine this screen right here is a piece of paper. We're going old school to do this review, right? So what would it look like if this were a piece of paper? Well, essentially, this is what the form, so to speak, would look like. It's going to have a goal section, right? And remember that goal section really is going to have one goal on there that we have pushed out to all employees. Now, if you do nothing, if you don't tell your employee to go put goals, you don't make sure they go put goals, you don't approve the goals, or you don't push a goal to them, that's the only goal that's going to be on their first review that comes up. Okay, because once the review's been created by the system out there, you can't go back and re-edit it. So if you decide today's their anniversary date and you decide today that you want to add a whole bunch more goals for their review right now, that's not going to happen. Okay, so I'm just telling you the limitations of the system to help orient you to what you need to do. So if you choose to work with your employee and have additional goals, which I highly, highly recommend you do, so it can be a more effective review, you're going to do that between now and a couple of weeks prior to their anniversary date, right? So you're going to start on this process now with some of your employees to get ready for this, the cycle kicking in. Okay, so it's gonna show then. Let's say you have 5 different goals that you set. The review is going to basically have 6 goals, right? It's going to have the one goal that we pushed out and the 5 goals that you worked with the employee on. Each of those is going to have kind of a section of the review, so the employee can make comments and you can make comments. It's going to have those 5 competencies. So in the first part, we talked about competencies. It's going to have the customer focus, financial awareness, innovation, quality, and teamwork. And so again, the employee can kind of comment on those areas, and you as a manager can also provide your commentary on those areas. And then lastly, there's an open text box, so to speak, right? There's an area that says developmental comments. And so this is the catch-all, I call it, right? So if there's certain things that the employee wants to talk about, hey, in the future, I would really like to do X, they can put that here. If there's other comments that they didn't really feel like represent their performance, that were not covered by the goals, were not covered by these competencies, they can type it in there. So can you as a manager. So if you ultimately forgot to go in for this employee and add a goal or add something, you could certainly type it in there as a reminder for your discussion with them and to memorialize it within this written review that will be recorded on the system. Okay. So that's kind of what the form would look like, so to speak. And again, I know we all come from different places, so I know if you were actually using either an electronic, a Word document, a PDF, a piece of paper, those documents all look different depending on where you found it, where you created it. If you used one, you asked us for, for a sample, and HR provided you a sample, et cetera. So this is kind of what it'll look like in the system. So then continuing with the whole life cycle concept. So then as a manager, what's expected of you after you complete the annual review? Well, this is where the process just picks up and keeps carrying on. So you've completed your discussion with the employee, you've finalized the review, everything's hunky-dory, right? Everything's great. Now you got to set new goals though, right? So the employees, they've just done a stellar job, let's say. So how are we going to stretch them more? What else do they want to learn about? What new projects can we have them try out and learn and lead? So that's when then what needs to be done is in the system, we need to actually have you or the employee go back in, either delete goals that aren't going to be carried forward for next year, modify any goals, like maybe it was a sales goal, for example, and we said they were going to raise sales 5%, and so now we're saying, oh well, you did so well, now it's going to be 7%. I don't know, I'm just making these up, right? But so you modify goals, and then you can add new and additional goals. And again, we just keep this cadence up, and so now we've got a full 12 months between when we're doing this, because we just did the review, and when their anniversary date comes up next. And so then it becomes more of a 12-month cadence, and we keep going through that. So you're going to lather, rinse, and repeat, right? Like the shampoo bottle says. So you're going to keep having one-on-ones. You're going to keep moving it forward, providing tools, working on their plan, and doing all of that. And then as I talked about at the beginning of the call, the best practice then is that you're going to keep using the tool as it exists. You can go in then and enter throughout the year. If they've just finished a project, that's the right time to kind of debrief the project with them, talk about the successes and the opportunities for improvement, and maybe make some notes in the system. So you don't have to try to remember that or dig out that piece of paper, 6 months, a year from now. So you just kind of keep working with the system and going forward. And this note here at the bottom of this slide just tells you there's a box that you'll see within there called Visible from Review. If you check that box when you make a mid-year comment, it will pull that into the review at the end of the year. So if there's a comment that you make, kind of like a manager note to file, note to self, you don't want it to go in the review at the end of the year, don't check that box. If you do want it to be pulled in at the end of the year, check that box. All right, I just talked a whole bunch again, so this is where you get to hear a change of voice. You get to hear Ashley talk a little bit.
My lovely voice. So the reason why we're doing this in terms of performance management, what Brian discussed with you in terms of the process in UltiPro, is to see what type of outcomes are going to show for your employees and also for utilizing performance management in general. So here we have a list of different potential outcomes in terms of benefits that will arise once we effectively use performance management. So it's going to allow us, or you, so to speak, as managers, to clarify job responsibilities and expectations. So it's going to be concise, it's going to be clear exactly what you expect of your employees in their specific role. So that's where the importance of going over that job description is. What is their role to Westcor, and how does it really affect the overall company? So that's a great conversation to have with your employee. It's going to enhance individual and group productivity. So for various projects that you may have for various roles here at Westcor, it'll allow you to have your team to come together and collaborate together on these projects. And at that point, it actually deals with more of an engagement on your team overall. You're going to be able to develop employee capabilities to their fullest through effective feedback and coaching. So because you're having this communication, the employee is going to feel that you're investing your time and energy into them. They're going to feel that they can actually be the best that they can be successfully for you and also for their company. In terms of motivation, they're going to feel motivated within themselves, so intrinsic motivation, that within themselves, they're going to feel better about themselves, that they're really applying towards the overall company and its success. And we driving behavior to align with our core goals and values. So as you all know, our West Core family here environment is more of a humanistic approach in terms of making sure that our employees are number one, that we care about them. We care about the goals and the values that they want to achieve in their lives to make them successful in terms of any small and long-term goals. So it's really just reiterating the fact of us being a West Core family. We're going to provide a basis for making decisions involving project assignments, promotions, and pay increases. So it's going to also assist you with making those decisions if you feel an employee is up for a promotion or for a pay increase. It's also going to assist you, even with the talent dashboard, that you'll be able to align different projects according to those skill sets that your employees may have. And finally here is an improved communication between managers and employees. So the improved communication between you and your employee, most importantly, is what this is for. So at that point, you're going to be building a relationship. You're going to be building trust with your employees. They're going to feel that you're open and receptive to their feedback. They're going to become open and receptive to your feedback. And collaboratively, you're going to make them have a great experience working here at WestCore.
And a lot of these are with rose-colored glasses on, right? Right. So these are the optimistic outcomes. Remember too that sometimes what happens when we more closely monitor and discuss employee performance is sometimes it helps us though in those few times when performance is not meeting expectations, and we need to figure out what to do about that. Right? In my kind of track record over time, it's about 50-50 in terms of if we have employees who are not meeting expectations and we try to give them additional training, we try to put them maybe on a performance improvement plan or something that'll bolster their skills and their ability to do the job. About half the time, as I've monitored this over 20 some years, it's been successful. And organizations have been able to take people and retool and enhance the skill set so that people can stay with the organization and can be productive, right? But unfortunately, sometimes when we get to that step and we're already there, about half the time people leave the organization, either because they choose to under that type of scrutiny and environment, or because it helps us provide some of the documentation and the rationale to say, we've really tried everything that we could do. We've tried to equip them. We've tried to make them aware, and ultimately they still either choose not to or they're unable to perform the essential functions of the job, right? And so it does help us, even from that kind of negative standpoint, it does help us sometimes decide when to take remedial action or when we might need to do something different with an employee, because we have so closely kind of coached and monitored and documented the steps that we've taken. So I don't want to bring a downer to the conversation, right? Because 90%, 95% of our interactions and conversations with employees are about, they're doing their jobs, they're meeting expectations, probably exceeding expectations, and that's just the case. But there are a few times where this will be a more difficult decision and conversation, but this also supports us through those.
So some great resources that we can provide to you here in HR, but also that's actually accessible to you in OT Pro are what we call quick tours. So I'm sure you're probably kind of familiar with us here in HR. We'll actually send you a link to a quick tour video, and these videos are really great and useful to you because they're less than 5 minutes for most of them. They're about 3 to 4 minutes, and they really drill into exactly what you're looking for in terms of whatever functionality you need at that point in time. So a couple of the examples here in terms of the quick tours, and we have definitely way more quick tours available to you in the performance management tool, would be how to do and create SMART goals, how to create personal development plans, and also how to assign goals and recommend in terms of assignable goals, what you're assigning to your employees, and also recommendable goals as well. In addition to that, in terms of HR, we definitely house great information for you. We're here to be an asset to you during this process. So like Brian reiterated just a few moments ago in regards to giving negative feedback, that sometimes you do have to have some counseling. So we do have counseling forms that are available to you to complete so that you have this on record. When we have those pertinent discussions with your employees. We also have the performance improvement plan, so they can really drill on to a specific time frame that you are requesting that employee to improve in their performance, attendance, et cetera, as examples. And also as well, this presentation that we have provided to you today, it is of course being recorded, and it will be available to you in Westcor University, and we'll also be sending it to you via email. Here at Human Resources, we are an asset. We want to definitely collaborate with you. So if you have any questions or concerns, most definitely you can reach out to any of us on the team, and we are here to help.
Thanks, Ashley. So, we know that at the end of the day, being a manager at Westcor is only a part of your job, right? All of us are working managers. We have a lot of other things that we're all responsible for, right? It's not just the people management portion. So we're trying to make it kind of as painless and easy of a process as we can. However, we know that this is a little, this is different, right? And it's different whether you've never done this before or if you had kind of your own process separately that was working outside of this tool in your part of the organization, et cetera. So I know that this is kind of ripping the Band-Aid off and saying, here's something new, try it out. What we're trying to do really is meet you where you are and help you integrate into this. And so, just think about it from this way, right? We're doing this training in August, right? It's the last week of the month. We're doing this training this week, and we're going to communicate out to employees, that we've listened and we're taking some steps on this, and they'll see more activity around the performance management tool and around the talent scorecard that they can complete and such. We're going to have this out there, and so starting in September, some employees are going to start to get pings already, because in September we'll have a group of employees. They might be yours, they might be mine, I don't know. Some of our employees might be hitting their anniversary, right? And so remember, because of the way that this is going to take place this first year, it's going to be, we're going to have to just be flexible and shift a little bit, because it's going to be a little weird. So if I have an employee who has an anniversary in September and they get pinged to do a self-review, we're going to help work with them and walk them through that process. And we may not have a lot of preset goals for them, because maybe it's an employee that I've never sat down and talked a lot about goals. So we're just going to kind of start where we are and review their current performance, and then we're going to pick up in that cycle. Okay. If I have an employee who isn't going to have a review for 11 more months, well, I've got a lot of time. So I could say, well, okay, I'm going to approach this, and I'm going to sit down now and talk to them about some goals, and we're going to agree on goals. And then, when the 11 months comes up, their first review kind of that they'll go through in this system will be different and kind of more robust. Okay, so we're just saying let's kind of jump in full, 2 feet. Let's jump into the process, acknowledge that it might be a little different, a little awkward. We've got to find our footing a little bit, but we're just going to start to take action on this with all our employees going forward in the best way that we can. And if you have questions or feedback, we really want to hear from you, because that's why we're doing this, is because we got questions and feedback around what is our performance management process and what is a tool that we can use. And I'd like to hear more from my manager about my performance and expectations and what my job actually is. How can I grow at Westcor? How can I take on maybe a different job in a different department? What can get me from A to Z? And so all of those are reasons that we've developed this and are working on it. And, I hope, again, we're going to try to make it as painless as possible as we can for you. But this first year, there'll be some, a little bit of pain as you try to figure it out, your own personal comfort with the system and the tools and the conversations. So we did a lot better on timing on this module. We do have some time for questions, either via the chat, or if you'd like to take yourself off mute and ask a question in front of everyone. So we do have a few more minutes. Feel free to let us know what questions you have. Bueller, anyone? All right. I will take that as feedback that we just did an amazing job and told you everything you need to know and that you would want to know, or that you're just too shy and you would rather personally call us and ask a private question about it. So again, thank you for your time through all this, and let us know what we can do to help you. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Bye, everyone. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.